What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Baltimore Ravens and their 2021 season preview, including record predictions. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, it's Mike here. Over 93% of you who view our show each and every day are not subscribed to the channel. If you could hit that red subscribe button, it would help us out tremendously, and it is completely free for you guys. If you want to stay up to date with our daily content, then click that bell icon and you will be notified every time we go live. Nick and I both really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and we can't wait to keep making more daily content for you. All right, Nick, as we continue the series, we are on the final division in the NFL, the AFC North, and we are talking about the Baltimore Ravens today. Baltimore Ravens made some key additions to their offense and had a really good draft, according to a lot of people. And they did lose some key pieces on the defensive side of the ball. We'll get to both of those in a second. But the Baltimore Ravens, they are one of those consistent pillar teams in the NFL where they're always in the mix, at least for the playoffs, possibly a Super Bowl. I mean, they are consistently churning out talent. So let's take a look at where the Ravens are now. Starting off with their additions, we have left tackle moving to right tackle, Alejandro Villanueva coming over for the Pittsburgh Steelers, guard Kevin Zeitler, wide receiver Sammy Watkins, and then from the draft they got wide receiver Rashod Bateman, defensive end Odafe Oweh, cornerback Shaun Wade, and guard Ben Cleveland. Out of these additions, which do you think the Baltimore Ravens will rely on most heavily moving forward?
I really like the additions of Sammy Watkins and Rashod Bateman. What we've been saying about Lamar Jackson is he just doesn't have the weapons to throw to. That's why he's not progressing as a passing quarterback in the NFL. And I believe now with these weapons, he's really going to start to flourish. He's really going to start to come into his own as a well-rounded quarterback in the NFL. We know how he's able to run and electrify everybody with his feet. But I think now he's really going to start to couple that with his throwing ability. He's really going to start to find some open weapons with Sammy Watkins, who's been a big weapon for Patrick Mahomes. And then back in Buffalo in the day, he was a huge weapon there as well. Rashod Bateman's a big weapon who was overlooked a lot in the draft because he came from Minnesota, not the biggest name school. And I think that he's now paired with other guys like Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews, who are other big weapons to this passing attack. I think with these two wide receiver additions, it makes the entire passing attack way more explosive than it's ever been. And this is where we're going to see Lamar Jackson really shine in 2021.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at the offensive line. You add Alejandro Villanueva, you take him away from your division rival Pittsburgh Steelers. And not only did you take him away, but you took him away for cheap, and you moved him to the side that you had the biggest hole. And then on top of that, you got Kevin Zeitler, who used to be a division rival of yours back when he was in Cleveland, but now he is on your team at the guard position. Now he's going to fill in for the Marshall Yanda hole that they had last year. So now with this offensive line, Villanueva, Zeitler, they are going to be absolutely phenomenal on this offensive line. Though you talked about the weapons, now they get the O-line set. Lamar Jackson has no more excuses. He's got the running back in J.K. Dobbins. He can do everything a quarterback is expected to do. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He's got the offensive line to protect him now. There's no questions anymore. This is his time to prove why everybody is so high on him, and his stock is rising every single year. All right, but with those additions, we do have some losses to note, starting off with outside linebacker Matt Judon, running back Mark Ingram, Matt Skura, the center, Yannick Ngakoue, the defensive end, Willie Sneed at wide receiver, and then trading away tackle Orlando Brown. Nick, out of these losses, which do you think is the most impactful for the Ravens moving forward?
To me, if there's any hole on this team, it really comes at the linebacking position because with the loss of Matthew Judon and Yannick Ngakoue, you're really looking to see where the edge rush is coming from, where the pass rush is coming from for this Baltimore Ravens team. And to me, without Yannick Ngakoue, without Matt Judon, these are big pieces that were not filled, and they're going to be the biggest holes that are going to be missed this season. Without a big pass rush, the secondary has a much tougher time doing its job. They're going to have to really step up their game if this defense is going to be as good as it used to be. And they need to put it all together because this team is as complete as you can ask of one team to be. At the end of the day, I don't think that Matthew Judon and Yannick Ngakoue's holes are going to hold the Ravens back from a Super Bowl run, but I do believe that it will hinder them from getting some key stops, from even getting some key wins in some big games where you are looking to get to the quarterback early and often, and you just can't because you don't have those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of struggled here because obviously the Judon and Ngakoues of the world, they don't just grow on trees. So losing those guys, pretty heavy. But when I take a look at this team, I have to go with Mark Ingram. And I'm going to preface this by saying I understand he was not the biggest player for this team. But you have a guy that was in an explosive offense in New Orleans who had incredible success in his career so far. He helped Alvin Kamara get to where he was going to be. The mentorship he was supposed to provide to J.K. Dobbins only came in 1 year. Now J.K. Dobbins has to figure it out on his own. Mark Ingram would have been a beautiful offset for J.K. Dobbins moving forward. I think that would have been an insane 1-2 punch that they could have had at the running back position. Without Mark Ingram, if J.K. Dobbins goes down, which he does have an injury history to look out for, I believe that the Ravens could be in some serious trouble because then they have to really rely on Lamar to throw the ball and not really have a running back that they can rely on. So I think the loss of Mark Ingram has bigger impacts than what he just brought to the field, more or less the depth that he brought and the leadership that he brought to that room. But either way, this is where the Baltimore Ravens are, so let's take a look at their schedule so we can give them their record predictions. All right, taking a look at the schedule for the Baltimore Ravens, we start off week 1 where the Ravens are on the road across the country at the Las Vegas Raiders, where they will open the Death Star in the desert. They are going to be an absolute rocking show in Las Vegas. This place is, I'm probably going to hear it on the East Coast. That's how loud this place is going to be. Raiders faithful, I mean, they always came in droves. They always showed up, whether it was away game, home game, didn't matter. Now that they have the Death Star, they have a dance party, they have the club, they have everything that you could ask for in this stadium. I believe that the Raiders are going to be extremely hyped up to have the crowd back. I believe that the Ravens, they're still working some kinks out. That offensive line is going to have to figure some things out. I believe that the Raiders bulked up at the defensive end position to attack weaker offensive lines. And don't forget Yannick Ngakoue, one of those losses I talked about. Yeah, he's on the Raiders. So I believe that this is going to be one of those games where he's going to pin his ears back and just come right after Lamar Jackson. I look for the Raiders to come out on top in week 1.
Yeah, that's a big loss in week 1, and that's something that's not really looking too good, as in week 2, the Chiefs are making their way to Baltimore. The Ravens have their first home game of the season, and this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest matchup of the year, because this is where the Ravens really get to test themselves out and see where they stand against the reigning AFC champions, the former Super Bowl champs themselves. This is the team to beat in the AFC, and to me, the Ravens have done a lot to improve this season. I think the Ravens are on a mission to finally get past the Chiefs, and they're able to get it done in week 2.
All right, and then in week 3, the Ravens hit the road for a mini road trip where they go to Detroit, and they're going to take a look at the Lions. The Lions they are in a conundrum. They don't understand whether they're in a rebuild, whether they can try to compete. I know they can't compete. So they might as well go for the rebuild. Jared Goff at quarterback. You brought Dan Campbell in as your head coach. The Lions are kind of starting from scratch. They're bringing in all these pieces just to have a show of good faith on the football field. But at this point, I believe that the Ravens are going to make easy work of the Lions in week 3 and come out with the victory.
The Ravens make easy work in week 3, and in week 4, they do the same thing. This time, they're at Denver facing off against the Broncos, and this is a team that can't even figure out what quarterback they want to throw out there this week. They're still trying to figure out how this offense is going to operate, how this defense is going to put itself together. The Broncos have been a team on the rise, but it just seems like nothing ever can click for them. And the Baltimore Ravens have been a very cohesive unit under John Harbaugh. They're going to continue to be that cohesive unit, and they're going to take advantage of the Broncos in week 4.
Then in week 5, the Indianapolis Colts visit Baltimore, where the Ravens have a 3-game home stretch. This time, starting off with Monday Night Football, the Colts, with that revamped offense, you brought in Carson Wentz to be in that Frank Reich system. I believe that the Colts are going to really bring it to the Ravens. I believe that this is going to be a very close game. But in the end, the defense for the Ravens is just going to be too much for this Colts offense. All 3 of these corners are just going to really shut down things for the Colts. They're not going to be able to get too much on the outside working for them. And I believe that the Ravens with Lamar Jackson are going to be able to run on this defense. They're going to be able to get some yardage on the ground, maybe a little time of possession on their side. I believe the Ravens come out in week 5.
Going to week 6 on a 4-game win streak, the Baltimore Ravens host the Los Angeles Chargers in a very competitive matchup between the two. Two very strong offenses against two very, I want to say, average, maybe slightly above average defenses. I think both of them have their holes, but the Chargers have their holes in the secondary and the Ravens have their holes in the pass rush. It's going to be interesting to see how well this Ravens offensive line has grown and their chemistry has grown as well to face off against guys like Joey Bosa and Linval Joseph up the middle. It's a big task for them. And I think at the end of the day, the Chargers pass rush is going to be a little too much for Lamar Jackson. To me, guys like Kenneth Murray and Uchenna Nwosu are going to be all over the field. These guys are great at going from sideline to sideline, and their motor runs all game long. They're going to show that against Lamar Jackson. They're going to be able to put a stop to his running attack, and they're going to really make him try to work his arm a lot more. And I think that's where Chris Harris and this secondary really comes into play. The Chargers are going to get a very surprise victory in week 6 over the Baltimore Ravens.
Then in week 7, the Cincinnati Bengals come into Baltimore. The Bengals, a division rival of the Ravens, and this is one of those teams that has continued to improve after last year drafting their quarterback of the future in Joe Burrow. Obviously, with that scary knee injury that he suffered, they spent some quality picks and some quality free agency money on guys to help him out, but they didn't address that offensive line. They got wide receivers, they got other weapons, but they did not get the offensive line situated. And I think that's going to be a big issue here with the Baltimore Ravens. Their lackluster front seven is really going to be a problem for them moving forward. But in this game, with that offensive line, I think you can get by with the pieces you have. I look for the Ravens to get yet another victory in week 7.
Then in week 8, the Ravens have their bye week. And then moving into week 9, they're again at home facing off against the Vikings. And when you look at this Minnesota Vikings team, the offense has stayed the same. They really have not lost any pieces besides Kyle Rudolph, and they have not gained many pieces as well. But when you look at this Vikings defense, they are much improved from last season. Not only are they all healthy, but now you add guys like Patrick Peterson and Dalvin Tomlinson to this defense. Those guys are big leaders. They're big bodies. They're going to make their presence felt. And I think that's going to hurt the Ravens a little bit. They're going to have struggles against this defense who has much improved. And when you look at where Mike Zimmer is positioned, he's really in the hot seat this season. He's got to make it work. And I think he's really going to get this defense under control for once in his tenure. To me, the Vikings are going to get a big surprise victory over the Ravens in week 9.
Then in week 10, the Ravens hit the road and visit the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, also another team that is vastly improved, talking about the addition of Will Fuller. They brought in Jalen Waddle from the draft. I mean, they have explosive wide receivers to match up with the lockdown corners that they have on the side of the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is going to be one hell of a Thursday night matchup. I'm really excited for this, but at the end of the day, the one thing that's going to put the Ravens over the top is Lamar Jackson. I believe Lamar Jackson is going to be able to run on the lackluster linebackers that they have in Miami. No more Kyle Van Noy, no more Kamu Grugier-Hill. They lost those guys. Those guys are gone, and they need people that are going to step up. I don't believe Jerome Baker can do it by himself. And at this point, Lamar Jackson's going to be able to run all over the Dolphins. Look for the Ravens to come out on top in week 10.
Now, in week 11, the Ravens are headed to Chicago, and I know I've been choosing the pass rush over the secondary in a lot of these matchups to be the reason why the Ravens are losing some games. But the Bears have that pass rush, except they're not going to win this game because when you look at the secondary, the loss of Kyle Fuller was way more massive than just losing your CB1. He was one of the biggest leaders on this team, and now it's a huge drop off from CB1 to CB2. Lamar Jackson may not be able to be a very efficient runner against the Chicago Bears and the guys they have to stop him, but I believe he's going to tear up this secondary, and his arm is really going to shine in week 11.
Then in week 12, the Cleveland Browns come to town, and this is going to be a matchup for the ages as the Cleveland Browns made some key additions this offseason to become one of the best teams in football. I mean, you're talking about Troy Hill, John Johnson. That's just in the defensive secondary. Then they added Jadeveon Clowney to opposite Myles Garrett. This team got stacked overnight. The draft that they had was absolutely incredible. But the Baltimore Ravens are still one of those teams that just knows how to play the Browns. It doesn't matter who comes in. And at the end of the day, the Browns are going into Baltimore, into that very, very loud and very, very rambunctious stadium. M&T Bank Stadium is going to be rocking. And again, I'm going to be able to feel it from where I am. Baltimore is going to be on a different level. I think that the Ravens are going to eke out a victory against the Browns in week 12 on a very, very close game. I think the Ravens just... When all is said and done, the Ravens know how to play the Browns, and I think that the cornerbacks and the secondary that they have are going to be able to compete with the Odell Beckham Jr.'s and the Jarvis Landry's and of the world. So look for the Ravens to come out on top in week 12.
In week 13, the Ravens head to another division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be a very tough matchup. The Ravens always struggle with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and even with the Steelers losing some pieces on both sides of the ball, they're still a very competitive team, and they're still going to be able to scheme against the Ravens because just like the Steelers, the Ravens have not really made too many big additions or had too many big losses where you need to change up the scheme all too much. To me, the Steelers, Mike Tomlin is going to have a very good feel of what to do against John Harbaugh and the Ravens, and I think that the Steelers are just going to outcoach, they're going to outplay the Ravens the first time they face off in week 13.
Then in week 14, the Baltimore Ravens go visit the Cleveland Browns, playing them for the second time in 3 weeks, and the Browns got a great look at what the Ravens had to offer, and I believe that the Browns are going to play a lot more time of possession the second game around. I believe that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to play massive roles here. The offensive line of the Cleveland Browns is going to be able to decimate the front seven of the Baltimore Ravens in this matchup, and I think that the Browns are going to walk out with an easy victory in week 14.
Headed into week 15, the Green Bay Packers, the Jordan Love Green Bay Packers, head to Baltimore. Is this even a matchup with Jordan Love as the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers? No, it's really not. Not for the Baltimore Ravens, at least. The Baltimore Ravens, the secondary is really going to take advantage of Jordan Love and his inaccuracies. The Baltimore Ravens offense is going to take advantage of guys like Kevin King, who somehow are still on the roster for the Green Bay Packers. Just run right by him and Lamar Jackson will lob it up for him. J.K. Dobbins, a big weapon, is going to run all over Kenny Clark and this lackluster run defense. To me, the Packers are just a thing of the past at this point, and the Ravens are really going to take advantage of them in Week 15.
In Week 16, the Ravens go on the road and visit the Cincinnati Bengals, and just like Week 7, it's going to be more of the same. The Bengals are still building up this roster. They're still kind of getting their footing underneath them as professional football players. I believe that the Baltimore Ravens have bigger aspirations than beating the Bengals. They're going to try to make easy work of the Bengals here. They're going to beat another division rival, get a victory in Week 16.
Moving into Week 17, the Los Angeles Rams are headed across the country to Baltimore facing off, and this is going to be a very good test for the Baltimore Ravens getting to the end of the season. The Baltimore Ravens are really going to get a feel for not only how they're facing off against good competition, but teams in the NFC. I believe that this is going to tell them whether they are ready to be in a Super Bowl and if they could win a Super Bowl with the current regime. I think that the Baltimore Ravens offensive attack is just going to be a little too much for the Los Angeles Rams to handle. Jalen Ramsey is a great corner. He'll take care of Hollywood Brown or Sammy Watkins, whoever. But who on this Rams defense is really going to stop Lamar Jackson? It's not going to be Aaron Donald, maybe Leonard Floyd, but no one on the Rams defense is going to have a chance to stop Lamar Jackson. I believe that Lamar's ability to run is going to be the extra dimension that this Ravens offense needs in a matchup against the Rams, and they're going to get the big victory over them in Week 17.
All right, that's a huge victory with victories over the Chiefs and the Rams. I mean, that's an absolutely incredible season, and now you're facing off in Week 18 with your division rival Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a make or break game for both of these teams. The Ravens, they're fighting for a playoff spot, possibly for the division. They're also fighting with the Steelers to keep them out of the playoffs, and there's nothing more that the Baltimore Ravens want than to keep their division rival Steelers out of the playoffs and put Big Ben's career in jeopardy moving forward. I think that the Ravens at this point have what it takes to beat the Steelers. They lost to them in Week 13. They're not going to repeat those same mistakes. I look for the Ravens to come out on top in Week 18 and keep the Steelers from actually making the playoffs.
With a record of 12-5, the Baltimore Ravens are staying steady actually to where they were last season. They're right on par with where they were. And to me, the Baltimore Ravens are definitely making improvements. They just got to start making improvements in the right places. The offensive line, you lost some people, and now you got it maybe a hair better than where it was. You lost your key running back in Mark Ingram, but you think J.K. Dobbins can fill that void. You got weapons for Lamar Jackson to finally throw to. But now on defense, you lost Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakoue. I think where there were gains, there were losses in other big areas, and that's where the balance comes. I believe that the record stays the same because at the end of the day, the amount of talent that's on this team hasn't really changed. I think the Baltimore Ravens will have success moving into the playoffs, and they may even advance far into the playoffs, but I don't believe they have enough to actually get all the way with the current team they have in place. They're on the right track. I think they just need one more offseason, possibly even two, to get all the way. I think Lamar Jackson's finally coming into his own, especially after another big season, another winning season. I believe that he's going to start to progress as a passing quarterback with these weapons as well. I think the Ravens are on the right track. They've just got to continue to work at it and get better.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens, they have put together some impressive wins, as I've already mentioned. And on top of that, we're looking at a team that is looking to grow together. Lamar Jackson's still very young. J.K. Dobbins, very young. Half of this offensive line, still very young. The defense, still pretty young. I believe that they have to get some key pieces in there, outside linebackers and, other pieces that they need to. But this is a weird year, especially with the salary cap the way it was. A lot of things didn't go their way. I'm sure they would have loved to have kept Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakoue. Just things did not play out that way. So they have to figure out a way to kind of retool and get things back together. But at this point, the Ravens are in a great spot. Taking a look at kind of where they are in the season, 12-5, absolutely incredible. Should be enough to at least compete for the division title, if not win it. But at this point, we're going to have to see where the rest of the division goes as we take a look at the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals to wrap up this series. But I'm really excited. I think that the Ravens have a lot to offer here. But all right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.